Now, as far as the Mueller special prosecutor case, which, could go a certain way, but they talk about how these cases in Maryland and New York and even the Stormy Daniels case with Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, long-term lawyer, being involved, how this could be more detrimental than the actual, special counsel and the Russia stuff, where this could actually be more important. I mean, from your legal mind, how do you see things playing out, and what should Trump be worried about the most?
It's a great question, and I almost think the Michael Cohen stuff. The reason I'm intrigued by it is if the only thing that they were looking into was the fact that Michael Cohen paid off Stormy Daniels and that he didn't then file that with the FEC
before the election.
Before the election, that's a violation, and it's, he gets a fine and he gets slapped on the wrist and he probably gets probation and whatever. It's a fairly minor offense overall in the grand scheme of federal court. The fact that they referred it to the New York Attorney's Office and the fact that a judge signed off on a warrant on it makes me believe there was a lot more there than
criminal.
Just, yes.
Yeah, because they would just subpoena him if it was just the stuff about the campaign finance stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, it wouldn't be, and to get a search warrant of a lawyer is a pretty big deal.
It's a very big deal. You have to get a special master to go through everything. I mean, it's a very big deal, and there's something more than just the...
Could it be something with the foundation? Is that where the money's moving? Is using the Trump Foundation, or is it some of the business dealings? And
well, it looks like Cohen was the bag man. I mean, that looks like what his job was. It certainly wasn't being a lawyer, because apparently he was never in a courtroom. But I think that you're going to see them basically follow the money on this, and you're going to see that Trump. Probably, if he was willing to do this with the Stormy Daniels thing, you're probably going to see he's willing to do it on a lot of other stuff and willing to pay or have Michael Cohen cover him on a lot of other stuff. So I think it's going to be fascinating.
And please tell me that Sean Hannity's involved in this somehow on a criminal level. That would really just be...
Well, I think Sean Hannity ought to be charged for being Sean Hannity. There ought to be some law that just prevents him from existing. I don't know.
It's looking so, and it's looking like he has some business rental investments and some low-income places where he maybe skyrocketed the rent.
I don't know about Sean Hannity.
Well, that's probably going to play out.
But Donald Trump, certainly, focusing on the Trump organization, certainly any far-flung organization like that, with those many dealings in those many countries, with that much money, you dig far enough, you're going to find some malfeasance somewhere in some level from someone. It's probably not going to be a tough case to make on some level. There's something going on there.
Yes.
Now, I think Mueller probably, and this is just my guessing game here, I don't know if you would agree, but it seems to me that Mueller is going to kind of forego a lot of the lower level stuff here, unless that's all he can get. Somebody's going to get charged. There's going to be more charges that are going to come out here, no doubt. But he's looking for a home run.
I hope so. In all honesty, as much as I dislike Trump, I don't want to see a special counsel fall into the same trap that Ken Starr fell into, where we end up just trying to get anything to get a conviction. And I watched what Ken Starr did in Arkansas with a lot of my friends, where he was supposedly investigating this Whitewater transaction, and he couldn't get convictions because nothing was there. There was nothing there. So he would he went after one guy for his appraisal was too high on his house, and so he had him convicted of a false appraisal. He went after somebody for not filling out bankruptcy forms correctly, which nobody fills them out correctly. I don't want to see Robert Mueller fall into that trap because, as you said, it's a far-flung organization. There are no doubt they've made mistakes. They've done things that they probably shouldn't have done on a very low level. I don't want to see the special investigation go into that because, there's going to be a time that there's going to be a rich Democratic president in there.
Right.
And here we go again.
But you look at what's happened so far. Flynn, Manafort, Gates, Papadoulos. All right. These people, these aren't little financial crimes. They're financial crimes for many of these people, but these aren't paper crimes. These aren't little mistakes that were made. What we're learning, and Mueller's being very smart because he's playing it close to the vest here. We don't really know exactly what he's got on everything, but it's certainly, you can infer that there's, I don't know if it's a conspiracy, but you can infer that there's something going on here that's pretty major.
I think you can absolutely infer that. The question, I think, becomes, what did Donald Trump know?
And when did he know it?
And when did he know it? There you go. The thing that's different for me from Donald Trump from Richard Nixon is that with Richard Nixon, you know he wanted to know every detail that was going on. He wanted to know everything that was going on. So you knew when things were going on, when they started getting Ehrlichman and Haldeman, but you knew that Nixon knew what was happening because he was involved in everything. You wonder if Trump is actually personally that involved in the details of what's happening. You wonder if there was a Chinese wall, we used to call it in the legal profession, where things would be getting done and people would say, just don't tell Donald, and he doesn't really care, and he's not inquisitive enough to ask. I don't know. That's going to be very interesting because you're right there. I don't think there's any question they're going to find some fairly major malfeasance. The question is it going to reach Trump?
Well, and to go back to Michael Avenatti again, but he gets these gifts from Trump, and you see a lawyer get excited like that of like, wow, this gift came down from heaven today of a tweet, or he says, I absolutely was not involved with her, but then he goes in Fox and Friends and says, oh, Michael Cohen represented me with the Stormy Daniels case. And again, Michael Avenatti is just like, thank you so much, Mr. President. I mean, you've been in the courtroom. I mean, and Susan McDougal is another good example. I mean, the Catholic Church. I mean, some of your civil rights wins. What is that like to be a lawyer in the courtroom and to hear that verdict of somebody you've been fighting for? I mean, he obviously had some reservations about taking Stormy Daniels on as a client, but once he seemed to get to know her and heard how passionate she was, heard how smart she was, he did want to take this case, and boy, he's really taking it on. And he's in that courtroom. He hears Sean Hannity's name heard, and I mean, what is that like from a legal standpoint when you just get that win and it secures your case, and now they've just fallen into another trap? I mean,
it's the best. It's the best. It's a high you can't replicate. I grew up playing sports and basketball and baseball and stuff, and you hit the game-winning shot or you get the walk-off home run or whatever, and it's a high. Take that and multiply it times 10.
Wow.
It's just an incredible feeling when the jury comes back and finds in favor of your client. First of all, you put so much time and effort into it. Your entire trial, especially, you just don't sleep. You go 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever without maybe 6 hours of sleep a week, and you're so intense and you're so involved and you're so invested in it, and then for them to come back and sort of validate what you've been doing, it's like validating your work. I can't even explain it. It's
like shooting a three-pointer with somebody's life on the line.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Right.
So I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I will tell you that it's why trial attorneys. It's why we do what we do, because as much frustration it is and hard it is sometimes, boy, you get that thrill, and there's just nothing that can match it. There's nothing in the world that can match it.
We talked about a couple of impeachment events, U.S. presidents. We talked about Nixon a little bit. We talked about Clinton, of course, a little more closely. So you've been around a couple of those. So if you were elected, you might be involved in another. It's very possible that the House of Representatives would refer articles of impeachment to the Senate. So how would you think about that? What would you be looking at? What would you be weighing? And again, I know what a lot of it would result in what the Mueller investigation goes back. But what are the things that you're looking at to determine in your mind whether there's some guilt there?
Well, the thing that would be great for me, and I am not a great politician in terms of blowing my own horn. So I say this with some degree of humility. The concept of being able to cross-examine a witness on an impeachment of the president. I mean, I've done so many cross-examinations in my life. I think I'm very good at it. The possibility of cross-examining a witness over the impeachment of the president would just be phenomenal, and I think I would be extraordinarily good at it. I think that's one thing I've told people. I know Dianne Feinstein, been on the Judiciary Committee. I said, if you think she does a good job, wait till you see what I can do with a witness. So I would love that. I would love nothing more than the opportunity.
Yeah. And do you think it might come to that? I mean, there's, again, as I understand it, impeachment is really more of a political process than a legal one. I mean, it's kind of both, but it's political. And I mean, for me, I have a very difficult time imagining that a President Trump would be impeached and removed. I could see him being impeached if the House were to turn Democratic. 2/3 of the Senate, that's a lot. That's a pretty big, as it should be, a pretty big barrier to overcome.
Sure.
You would need some pretty strong proof to be uncovered. So do you think it's likely?
No. And I want to hit on what you just said. There needs to be really strong proof. We don't like Trump, obviously. In our campaign, we've made that very vocal. But we're setting a precedent for the future here. You can't just do what the Republicans did with Bill Clinton. You can't just make impeachment a political device that's easy to do. And the Democrats don't need to fall in that same trap. If Mueller finds out that Trump has done a number of things that are illegal, high crimes and misdemeanors, they say, if it turns out that that's happened and the proof is strong there, then go forward, because that's what the Constitution says. But if it's borderline, we've got to be very, very careful here, because we do not want to set a precedent, because, again, we're going to have Democrats in office in the future with Republican House and Senates. So you got to make sure the bar is high. It's set there high for a reason. It's got to be met. It's impossible to know what's going to happen with Mueller, what he's going to find, but given the makeup of the Senate, I don't see it happening.